Live Bruins Beat. Live Bruins Beat on a Monday. We were supposed to start at 12. We're starting at 12:14. Doesn't matter because we're here. Presented by Prize Picks as always. Use that promo code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. And of course, remember to go subscribe to Bruins Ringside on YouTube. We hit 10K. We're very excited about it. So go do that. And then if you don't like watching and you just like listening, go subscribe wherever you get your podcasts from: Spotify, Apple, Podbean. There's a million of them. So go do that. And then obviously CLNS has a ton of other great stuff. Celtics All Access, Patriots Press Pass. Those channels are humming. There's always stuff over there. So make sure to go check those out. I'm Evan Marinofsky. That's Conor Ryan. Connor, what is up?
Evan, I'm doing well. How you doing?
Doing great. Doing great. Even no matter how great I was doing, it wouldn't be as great as the Bruins right now. 6 in a row. Beat the Leafs on Saturday night, 5-3. They play the Leafs again tomorrow night on Tuesday. I will hand up. Thought Saturday was a scheduled loss. Not actually, but I was like, this looks like a loss. You've won 5 in a row. This is an inconsistent team. McAvoy's out. Middlestad's out. You're going to lose. Just
Yep.
way it is. Way it is. Not the case. Not the case at all.
Yeah, no. Very impressive. To your point, yeah, this is another tough test. I know Toronto's kind of been up and down, but still a team that has the firepower, especially where, what the Bruins roster was and the guys that weren't out there. It was impressive. And it's something that I think you look at. One of the biggest question marks for the Bruins going into this year is the depth, right? We didn't think that this team was going to have, even on paper, fully healthy, a team that can outscore their mistakes or put the other team on the ropes. And this is a game where you don't just have, no McAvoy, you have no Elias Lindholm. So you don't have your top right shot D, you don't have your top line center. You don't have your second line wing in Middlestat, who has been playing really good hockey. And what do the Bruins do? It's like their depth really, I think, stood out in this game. And you got contributions all across the depth chart. All the different lines were cashing in. You have Mason Laura getting back into the lineup, and he had an unbelievable game. I think going back for 5 games off, it's tough to kind of just get thrown back into the fire like that. But had two assists, didn't put himself in bad spots, and you saw him kind of play to his strengths. But wasn't just him, right? Like, you had everyone kind of pulling on the rope. You had Swimman made timely saves. You got a Pasternak goal. You got Geeky contributing. You got Fraser Minten scoring against his old team. It's just when you look at this overall 6-game winning streak, you've had kind of games where it's been a player or two that stood up, that stepped up and helped you out, right? You've had Hustinov win you a couple of games. You've had Minten step up. And this was a game where you're just seeing it all across the depth chart. And as you're a Bruins team that is, I think, trying to build some momentum and feeling confident about your game, it's a performance like this on the road in Toronto, shorthanded, where a lot of guys step up, that I feel like that's a game that you can really kind of get galvanized and get, a lot more momentum going in your favor moving forward.
I was going to say, that's a galvanizing win. That's a win where it's like, all right, like, we're bought in. And as Sturm said at the beginning of the year, not enough guys are on the bus. I think everybody's got a seat and is well accounted for on the bus at this point. I mean, seatbelts on, like maybe head against the cold window when you were a kid, like on the school bus going into school. Like that's them right now. They're cooking. And I think, I was at New England Sports Center all weekend, and there was a listener of the show who stopped me and said, "Do you host a Bruins Beat?" And I said, "Oh no, God, no, please, I swear I'm not." And he was like, I got to push back on you a little bit. You say they're not a playoff team, and I think they are playing like a playoff team now, and I could see them making it. And I was like, they are, yeah. I mean, I could at this point. I mean, they're second in the Atlantic. They've won 6 in a row. They're certainly playing like a playoff team, and I think they're playing to the identity this team should be. And as you said, you're getting contributions from everybody on Saturday night. And I think the biggest thing is, like, your top guys scored. Morgan Geekie and David Pastrnak had goals. Pasternak's goal, by the way, was like, holy crap, filthy. That was insane. But then you have contributions from other guys in the lineup too. You have Fraser Minten scoring a goal. You have got Arvidsson. Like, that second line keeps cooking. Even without Middlestat there. And Middlestat, as you said, has been fantastic of late. So it's just, things are coming together, especially after such a rough stretch to begin the year. And I do wonder, like, it's, you have a tough stretch coming up. You have Toronto Tuesday, you have Montreal. Then they go out west soon as well.
Yeah.
You play a really good Ducks team, the Kings. I think the Sharks as well. The Sharks are a really exciting team. I was watching them the other night. Like, Celebrini, man, why?
Pretty good player.
Not bad. Not bad. Where'd you go to college? I forget. I don't remember the college one.
Well, it's a really good school. It's almost as good academically as it is sports wise, but great spot.
But to me, like, I look at what they're doing right now, and I know that 6 wins in a row is not sustainable. You're not always going to go on those kinds of runs. But the way they're winning games is they're playing better defensively. They had low Ryan sheltered minutes, which I think is, like, right now, that's the perfect spot for him. And offensively, you're getting contributions from everybody. Like, it's coming together right now.
Yeah, and I think you're seeing guys that are just getting more settled into their roles and are feeling confident about their games, right? Like we looked at Fraser Minten as a guy that we're saying, all right, he can be a guy that maybe gives you 25 points, but if he's solid as your 3C, he's like, playing at a really high level right now. He's averaging, I think, close to 16 minutes of ice time over the last 6 games. I think he's got 5 points during that stretch. Like, Marco Sturm loves him, right? Like he pretty much said it before the season started.
Holy moly.
Said after Saturday's game, he thought he was the best player on the ice. I'm not saying that we're getting swept up of like, is this guy a 2C down the road? But he's playing like he's not just a 3C, solid two-way guy that any offense is going to just be the cherry on top, right? Like he's making those smart plays, but he's doing the things that leads to production. And feels like he's really kind of turned the corner after a little bit of a slow stretch there to start the season. So he's feeling good about his game. To your point of like the second line, like, I mean, Zacha's been on a roll the entire year, but Arvidsson, I think, is starting to heat up. It's unfortunate that Middlestat is out. Sturm mentioned today on Monday after practice that he's probably week to week, but they feel like he's recovered pretty well already. So maybe it's by next week he's back in the equation. We'll see. But he was playing at a high level. You look at, that third line, it's not just Minten, but I feel like Jeannot and Kastelik are playing really well now. Kastelik continues to, I think, impress since he's really been here. But even a guy like Jeannot, right, a guy that caught a lot of flack to start the year as far as that contract, like, has a great play to set up Corrali's goal on Thursday against Ottawa, right, where he draws the 2 guys to him, sets him up for that goal. And then I thought he was impactful again on Saturday against Toronto. And this is a player that in Jeannot, who's on pace for, I believe, 31 points this year, which I think would be his second highest scoring year after that one breakout year he's had. And it's almost like, all right, you compare him with a guy who he essentially replaced in Trent Frederick, who's got 1 goal and 0 assists in 15 games with Edmonton. Like, again, there'll be people who don't like that Jeannot contract, but he's playing to his strengths. He's playing to the identity I think the Bruins want him to play at. I think you're just seeing guys buying in all across the board. And to your point about this team knowing like what they have to do, I think like you see it reinforced on Thursday, right? Like the Bruins, like every team at the end of a game, a win, they hand out like the puck, and usually it's to the guy who makes the biggest contribution on the score sheet, or, goalie has a shutout, all that sort of stuff. The Bruins have changed it this year where it's the grinder award. So it's not the guy who maybe has the hat trick or the 2 goals. It's the guy that does the little things, blocking shots, all that sort of stuff that helps them win games. So Sturm has mentioned that, this is what the Bruins have to be this year. And I think you're seeing the players, embrace that identity. And it sure helps if you're Marco Sturm, if you can preach that, and then all of a sudden the wins start piling up. And I think you're seeing this team be one that, yeah, they may not have the high-end skill up and down the lineup, but they have a lot of guys all across the depth chart who work their ass off. And if you do that night in, night out, and guys are stepping in here and there, you're at least going to be in these games. You're going to be competitive. And right now they're executing.
You mentioned some of these guys in the middle that maybe aren't high skill, like Mikey Eyssimont, 4 goals, 8 points, 17 games. Arvidsson starting to heat up, 5 goals, 8 points, 17 games. Mittens has like 5 points in his last 6, I think, and has 6 on the season. Jeannot 6, Kastelik 5, Corrali 5. Like, you're getting those guys. They're not just playing the right way; they are chipping in production, and I think that part of it too is helping them so much. where it's not, the burden isn't just on Pastrnak. And we've said this 1,000 times on the show. You're not always going to get production from your bottom six. You're not always even going to get production from your middle six. You do have to rely on those guys up top. But I think the fact that they are producing as much as they have is a huge, huge help to them right now. And it's encouraging to see that Kastelik assist on Minten's goal. Woo-hoo!
Yeah.
Like little toe drag in, draws the defender. Like that was okay. And that was, it's like, all right, you know, and you can't rely on that all the time. But so first of all, it's a reminder that even the toughest guys in the NHL are really freaking good. By the way, like when Sean Thornton had penalty shot goal, like they're really freaking good. I want to get into the Minten trade because that's been something that's on the minds of a lot of people. Brett asked a really good question about the deadline that I don't think we've touched, so I want to get into that in a bit.
But first, Rasmus Anderson, come on down.
Trade the first. Trade them, everyone out, every asset out. But first, our friends at Prize Picks. This episode's brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this season on Prize Picks, where it's good to be right. Bruins-wise, I'm looking at you, Morgan Geeky. He just keeps scoring. How do you not take more than 0.5 goals in a game that he's in? And David Pastrnak, more than 0.5 points. To me, those are the two that I continue to ride with and continue to like. Prize Picks is simple to play. Just pick more or less on 2 to 6 player stat projections. And if you get your picks right, you can cash in. Prize Picks invented the flex play, which means you can still cash out if your lineup ain't perfect. You can double your money even if one of your picks doesn't hit. Download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Why don't we start? We'll start with Minten. We'll get to the listener questions in a second. Fraser Minten. That trade has never looked better. And I'm not even just saying off the goal, right? Like Brendan Carlo's out of position, all that stuff. Minten is developing into a really reliable middle six guy. He's not even 22 years old yet. You see the speed, you see the intel, you see the hockey IQ. There's an offensive flair. Like if he was just this for the rest of his career, I think he'd be like, cool, like take it. But he's still really young and can still develop. That end of it, you also have their first. Like, what if the Maple Leafs stink? I don't know. Like, there is that part where it's like, what if that pick ends up being like realistically like 15th or 16th or 17th? And you dumped Brendan Carlo in that. So that trade right now is looking pretty damn good.
Yeah, no, I mean, even if like we laugh about like, oh, what if like Toronto like actually plummets or something and they get the 7th pick or something? I know it's top 5 projected. Even if that's very unrealistic, even if it is something in the late teens, you look at how deep this draft is. Like you're gonna get a really solid like right shot D prospect or a really solid winger, I think, if you get a pick in the teens, or even if it's more realistically 21st, right? Something like that. You're probably going to get a pretty good player in this draft if you, have 1 or 2 picks to work with there. So that already is a plus in and of itself. But then, yeah, like you look at what Minten has been this year, and you hear from, it's not just Sturm. I asked Zadorov today about like what stood out about Minten so far. And, a lot of the guys mentioned like, oh, like his like maturity, his approach on the ice. He's like, young guys don't like grasp like how active you need your stick to be. Like guys just let passing lanes develop because they're not locked into those details. He's like a veteran as far as how he is, and he's just going to get better with that. So, he's getting praise from his teammates, from his coach, and I think you're seeing it, right? Like to what I said earlier, I think if he was your steady 3C, like a Chris Kelly, right? Like great two-way player, great at face-offs, and gives you 25, 35 points, you'll take it because he's so good defensively. But like, what if he has more upside? Maybe he's like elite third line center where he could be like a 40 point guy or even more, or maybe he can play further up in the lineup. Like you look at just his skill set and how much I think, the biggest question marks for him are not, can he hang around? Can he adjust to NHL speed or anything like that? It's just, I think, what his offensive ceiling is. I'm not saying that all of a sudden he's got a 25 goal season incoming, but I think you see the way he plays. If he plays to his strengths, the production's going to be there, right? Like, it's not like he's this guy that's killing guys on the rush, or he's not, dangling through players. But if he plays to, his approach, he's going to be a productive player. So you look at that trade beyond whoever the Bruins could get in this draft, or you can even parlay that pick into a player if you want to move it at the deadline. That already helps out this team as far as their long-term plans. But then you add in a guy like Minten, who at the very least is going to be a middle six stalwart for this team. Trade's looking pretty good right now. You make the same thing with like the Coyle trade as far as like what Will Zellers is doing at North Dakota. And then even what Middlestat, a guy who we've said is, a guy that you're trying to boost his value for. He's like a 50-point guy on the second line right now. So
yeah,
I do think like all those trades so far have been working out for the Bruins. If only the Bruins got a 2026 first for Marchand, because like Florida's been kind of up and down so far this year. I think they're going to be just fine. But yeah, and even like I looked at another comment from Shane. I know you can't see it on the screen yet, but he's talking about Hustendinov as part of the Brazeau deal, right? Like, you're having a lot of guys so far that are pulling on the rope and are doing things to contribute to help out this team right now. And what you hope for, they're part of the equation moving forward. And that's kind of what we mentioned, Evan, like before the year started, regardless of where this team was going to end up as far as the standings this year, they a playoff team or whatnot. What we were saying, like the priority for this team was you got to identify guys who are going to be part of this team once you come out the other side of this retool rebuild. Like last year, you found out that Morgan Geeky's a player. It's validated more this year, but if you can come out of this year, regardless of where you end the year, and Minten looks like a legit player, Hustendinov looks like a guy that could be in your middle six. All those things are so key for this team. And so far, all these trades have been working out really well.
Yeah, Shane Zellers came back in the Coyle trade to Colorado, so that was that trade. But then again, that's a trade that's looked really good, really good. Back to Minten, I think one of the big things with me, and this is sort of my trust in him, is like if they had to move him up to the top line for a couple of games, I'd be like, hell yeah! Like, not only do I want to see how he plays up there, but I trust him. I think Sturm trusts him, like the way he plays defensively, how he assists in the offensive game. Like someone mentioned the Stahl brothers. Like, I think it's very clear at this point that Minten is going to be one of those guys that's going to be with you when you're on the other side of this thing. And by the way, you might not be on the other side of anything. If you keep winning like this, it's like, all right, well, just keep winning. Like, so what? But I do think it's clear that he's going to be someone that you're going to build around, and he's going to be a piece of this. And I think that is so what they needed. A guy down the middle who's reliable and fits their culture. As much as the Bruins drafted for speed and skill, as much as the Bruins even got a guy like Hustendinov or Will Zellers at the deadline, who were, about speed and skill and offensive finesse, Minten still fits here perfectly, still fits really well. And I think that's a huge part of it. As well. And it hits it at this. It was the first question we got. I got to go back and scroll through it. Brett asks, is it too early to talk about buying at the deadline? And if you sell when the team is over 500, what does that do mentally to guys like Geeky, Pastrnak, and McAvoy? I can give you a definitive answer on the second part of that. If they are where they're at now at the deadline, you can't sell. You can't. Like, this team is notorious for believing that if they can get in the playoffs, they have a chance. And when you have guys like Pastrnak and McAvoy in their prime, you've got to take every chance you can. Now, you could maybe still deal Arvidsson and get something for him because he's a pending UFA, and then package picks or prospects for a long-term player. If you want to say Rasmus Anderson, that could be someone. I'm hesitant, though, to deal your firsts. I am. I don't care where they're at. I'm still going to be conservative on this. I still don't want to deal firsts. I don't. And granted, I said that same thing the year that they were the best team in hockey. And it wasn't until like the 11th hour that I was like, actually, yeah, like go all in. And maybe that'll be me this year. But from what I've seen so far, I'm not dealing firsts. I'm not dealing firsts. I want to make the picks.
I think it all comes down to there's a lot of factors still, at play here, right? We're only on November 10th. So you got to see
where deadline, baby. That's where
so you got to see where this team is in March, right? Like if this team is all of a sudden we're looking at this group and we're at the deadline and the Bruins are like comfortably in a playoff spot, let's say they're like second in the Atlantic in March, then like, yeah, they probably aren't selling off guys. Like even a guy like
No.
Arvidsson, if he's on pace for 24 goals and 45, 50 points, you're probably keeping him, right? Even if maybe he's just going to cash in elsewhere after the season, that'll probably rankle some fans, right? But I feel like if that's the way the Bruins are playing, like, but like maybe
Yeah.
that changes, but maybe that changes if they're on the outside looking in, right? If they're just outside the playoff picture, maybe they're the second wild card team, right? Like that is exactly. Well, Aiden, I would say, Pittsburgh, I feel like they're kind of a paper tiger. So I don't really know. We got a long ways to go.
Ottawa's going to be a tough matchup in the first round. Olmark,
Yes.
Swayman, that's going to be a good storyline. Are they going to be hugging at the end of games? Like, what are
Cinema.
they going to do?
Yes.
Exactly.
But no, like I think so. As far as the trade deadline, yeah, it's going to depend on where exactly this team is, as far as in the standings and what you do with some of the assets you have, like a Iverson, like a Middlestat, Zaka, obviously. But then, yeah, as far as buying, right, I think it all comes down to what you're getting. Like if you're getting a rental or a guy that is going to, help out your team, but he's not part of the long-term equation, then no, of course not. It's kind of like similar to when they got Hampus Lindholm, right? They immediately signed him to an extension. If you get a guy like that who's going to be part of this team for the next 5+ years as an impactful player, then maybe you change your approach, right? If you're bringing in a guy like Anderson, if Jordan Kyrou gets dealt or something like that, I know he's already signed long-term. Maybe that's where you change your approach, but we got a long ways to go until we get to that point. But let me tell you, I'd rather float these possibilities and have it be still on the table than where we were a few weeks ago. We were like, well, Verhoff could probably be in the lineup in October by next year. So I don't, listen, a lot can change. The Bruins could still bottom out, but I'd rather have that conversation once we get to later in the springtime before, it felt like it was almost a foregone conclusion before even Halloween that the Bruins were getting ready for a lottery pick. Doesn't feel like that's the case right now.
I said this Thursday night with Court. Enjoy this. Enjoy the vibes. Like why, don't rain on it. Enjoy the good vibes. I the Arvidsson thing is tough because like if you said, 25 goals, 50-point guy, you're right. You probably, if you're going for it, you're going to want to keep that guy on your roster. Don't you think though, keeping him like in hindsight years later would look back and be like, you could have got something for that. Like if he'd be 33 at the beginning of next season. He turns 33 in April. So like, what does that next contract look like? Are you okay with doing that with where they're at roster wise? Like I still would want to deal Arvidsson, even if they're second in the Atlantic. And I know that would mess with them. That would. And by the way, this is the other part too. And behind the B, who's speaking up in the dressing room?
Yeah.
Victor Arvidsson. Like that's a big move. But again, if you're dealing Arvidsson, I would hope that you're taking the second and the prospect that you're getting for him, or somehow if you're getting a first, if he was that good, you're probably getting a first for him. You're only dealing him for first. Maybe you package that first with a prospect or someone else for a Hampus Lindholm type trade. Which then, yeah, hell yeah, you're kind of, taking some chips off the table to go even more in. So like, that's my thing. Again, these are problems that are far ahead of us. These are not things that are being dealt with right now. One other comment I saw about James Hagen's being on the wing, from what I had heard, he's on the wing just for faceoffs, and then he switches back to the middle once play gets going. So I don't think that's too big of a thing to worry about. Another thing I saw was Zaka's contract. What should Zaka's next contract look like? I mean, right now you're holding on to him. Like, that's for sure. Like, if you're continuing like this, you can't deal him.
On pace for what, 70 points?
Yeah.
That's like a high-end second-line center right now. That's not like a solid two-way second-line center. He's been awesome this whole year. You got to give credit to him because I always have liked Zaka's game. I know last year his numbers dipped a little bit, which, like, we say dipped. He almost hit 50 points again, right? It wasn't like we've had like some of those years with like a guy like Coyle where you're expecting like a 40-point year. And then he had that 1 year where he had 22, right? Like you had kind of different spikes as far as
he went up and down a lot.
Yeah, as far as what his overall production has been. Zaka for his 3 years has averaged, I think, 54 points. And now he's on pace for even more of there. So He's been awesome. Yeah. Again, if the Bruins were plummeting down the standings, then I think, yeah, you would probably get a haul for him. You still would, but it also goes back to, what makes the most sense. If the Bruins really wanted to, give their farm system a shot in the arm, yeah, you probably would still trade Zaka and you'd get, what we say with Vancouver, you probably get Coots and a first round pick and hell, like probably another player as well. It's the same thing with Arvidsson. Like, what's the best course of action for the Bruins business wise, long term wise? Of course, it's trading Arvidsson, but you could also say like, oh, the Bruins in 2020, they weren't going to re-sign Torrey Krug, but were you going to trade him? I know I know Torrey
No,
Krug's
I
been
agree
there
with
for a
you.
long time.
I agree.
Like it's apples and bowling balls, as our friend Phil Leotardo said in The Sopranos. but like still, in terms of what made the most sense, if you're just looking at it from the Vegas Golden Knights stone cold business approach, then yeah, it's probably just trading the guy. But you do have to weigh some other things as well. So I do get it as far as trying to pump and dump, right? Like a player like that. But a lot of different factors that have to be at play there. So it's a good sign if we're still talking about this once we get to the springtime.
Yeah, they're treating Arvidsson like a meme coin. Although I will say Vegas would take him and then deal what you got for him and get like a better player. And they'd be like,
Yes.
all right, Vegas is wheeling and dealing out there. Friendly reminder, also make sure to go subscribe to Bruins Rinkside on YouTube. Lots of great stuff coming. We're doing these all the time. I thought, when I used to say that, it was like, we'll do them like once a month or whatever. We're doing these every week. So we're just doing them live. We know you tune in. We love the interaction, and it's really fun. I look forward to this whenever we do it. And make sure to subscribe to Bruins Beat, Poke the Bear, Pucks with Haggs, wherever you get your podcasts from. And there's lots of other great stuff at CLNS too. Celtics All Access, Patriots Press Pass, all that great stuff. I see a lot about Arvidsson's leadership. It's made a difference. They're more bought in. It seems like that room is in a much better spot. Props to the Bruins video guys for going in the room when Sturm is screaming at them. I know that can be an awkward thing when you're behind a camera and they kind of look towards you and they're like, hey, get out.
Get the fuck out.
Get out. Get out. But to their credit, props to the Bruins video guys. They stayed in that room and they got an awesome thing. And I think, you can look to that Sturm yelling at them. And I love when he's like, I've tried to be nice, but I'm so effing disappointed in you guys. Like, they needed that. They absolutely needed that. That came, I think, after the Anaheim game.
Yes.
And ever since then, outside of that Ottawa loss, they've been cooking. And I think he's pressed all the right buttons. We've talked about it a number of times. But look, he's looked great. He's looked great in these last couple of weeks. And again, this winning streak's going to end. Well, maybe it won't. They're just going to win every game the rest of the year. But it will end. And they're going to have to get back to winning and losing, games on a regular basis each way. But if they can continue to, if they can play the way they've been playing, like, I don't think it's insane that we're sitting near the deadline and saying, they do need to buy. Like, if you have a chance to go for it, why not go for it?
Yeah. I mean, it's going to depend on, who's out there and just how much this team is continuing to gel, right? Like, it almost feels like this team has so many moving parts that it feels like they haven't hit like what their ceiling could be, though, right? Like, you still have all these younger players who are still establishing themselves. You're still, seeing when Middlestad is back and healthy, like that line, I think can produce even more. We're not even looking at the fact that, the first line last year, Pastrnak and Geeky were automatic together. They were averaging, I think, like 4.1 goals per 60 minutes. This year it's 1.8. Like, they haven't really even clicked completely at 5-on-5. What happens when Elias Lindholm's back and they get rolling, right? Like, there's even more upside there. I think there's a lot more room to grow on the power play, and I think you've seen that be more productive. So as encouraging as it is that the Bruins are stacking wins, and I think guys are starting to get settled in and they're buying into the system, I also don't think, like, not saying that this is not the ceiling, right? Like, that they're going to just go undefeated, but I think you can get even more production, more potential out of these guys as the year goes on. And I think that's also really encouraging from both Marco Stern's perspective and I think the team as a whole.
I want to give you props. You mentioned the power play. Bruins are 12th in power play percentage. And what did you say all summer? You said if that power play can just get to like 19th.
Yeah, I said 19th would be like a win, which...
Yeah, like if you can get there, They're in 12th. The credit to Steve Spott, like 22.2%. Pittsburgh, by the way, is number one. Pittsburgh is like the story of the league. That is incredible. They were projected to be one of the worst teams in the league. By the way, so were the Bruins. The Bruins were also projected to be down there, especially with like betting odds and everything, and they haven't been. But the power play has been so much better. That's been a huge difference. And they're making incremental gains, and they've been much better defensively of late, which is a huge part of it. And they're cooking. Like, they're in a good spot. The fact that we're sitting here and look, I'm a firm believer you've got to make your picks. They don't necessarily have to be first or second or third overall, but you've got to make your picks. I still believe that. But the fact that we're even sitting here being like, what if you traded one of them for a much better player? Like, what if you added a piece to your core at the deadline? Like, they're in a good spot. They're in a good Steve spot. So
Ayo,
you take that.
I also think you look at like Pittsburgh as an example. It's interesting, right? Like how successful they've been, and of course, a lot of it starts and stops with their elite core that's been there forever, right? Like Crosby's been unreal. Malkin's playing at a high level, but it also I think shows you how much of a lift your team can get when also you just have younger players that can step in and contribute in other spots of your lineup where you weren't getting that production. Like you look at how like Ben Kindle's been for them this year. And you look at like from the Bruins perspective, you're getting some of those same production from a guy like Fraser Minten, but also you've got like James Haggs and Zellers and these guys on the way. And again, I'm not saying that Haggs is going to come in and be a 60-point guy, but like you're getting more reinforcements on the way that was a direct byproduct of blowing things up last year. But also, like you look at Pittsburgh, Crosby's what, 38? Malkin's 37. The Bruins have an elite core, right? But also Pasternak's 29, McAvoy's 28, Swayman's 27. So if you already have those guys that are going to be leading the way, Zadorov's what, 29, 30?
And by the way, he's worked his way into that core. Like Zadorov's been fantastic of late. I'm thoroughly impressed.
You look at like the Bruins and what they're trying to build here, right? Yes, exactly. I mean, no one will be better than Jack Eichel, but no, like you look at I think what their blueprint has to be. It's almost kind of like you look at their top players the Bruins have. It opens the window of contention even more if your young guys hit and contribute right away. And I think that's also encouraging as far as what they're trying to build as far as a sustainable contender and a team that ideally, if this team does exceed expectations, you kind of retool on the fly. And a lot of that is the byproduct of one, ripping off the Band-Aid last year, the deadline, and also having a pretty young core still in place.
I was just about to bring this up. Like there is part of me, and this is thinking in a more positive way, but I do wonder if we look back and say that was, blowing things up at the deadline was all they needed to do. Now, the next segment of that is you need to hit on those picks, right? Yes. Your picks that you made this past year, your picks that you're going to make next year, the picks in 2027, you've got to hit on those picks. But blowing it up got you Zellers, got you Minten, got you more picks. Like Haggs. Like I do wonder, that's a big one.
All these guys.
I do wonder if we look back and go, oh, all it took was just blowing it up at one deadline, sending everybody packing, and they rerouted themselves. And, look, Zadorov's been much better. There are guys lower in that lineup that are, Hustidinov's holding his own as the number one center. Is he the number one center of the future? No. But knowing that he's a guy that you can slot in there in the middle six on the wing or at the center when needed is a helpful thing to know. Peak's been better. Like all these different guys have elevated themselves. Swayman's been good. Nick Korpisalo's been good pushing him. And it's like, maybe you have more here than you thought you did. Middlestat, Zaka, those are two other big ones. Like, I do wonder if we look back and go, oh, all it really took was blowing it up at one deadline. Now, that's optimistic. The pessimistic side is they revert back to themselves the rest of the year, and they're somewhere in the middle, and they miss the playoffs, and the roster ends up not being as good as it has been the last 6 or 7 games.
Yeah,
that could happen too. But I do wonder if we look back at the deadline last year and go, that was really where it all happened.
I mean, I also think even if this team does regress and it's looking like another year where you're either, looking at a first round pick in the teens or maybe one even higher if this team really does bottom out, I still think what you did last year, the deadline, if you looked at like just what steps had to be taken to really retool, rebuild this team, I think, not just dealing away like Coyle, right? Or one of these guys, or Brezzo, who you weren't going to resign, but like ripping the band-aid off, getting all these picks.
Everybody.
Yeah, I think it accelerated probably your timeline by like a year and a half off of just like moving all these guys at once, right? So again, you have to hit on these picks, right? You need, you know, it changes if Hagen's to what someone said in a comment, like if he ends up maybe not right away, but ends up being a Keller or a Cooley down the line, yeah, that helps out tremendously. But if Will Zellers can be a guy that can be a 15, 20 goal guy, right? Like I think all these moves can pay off down the road, but I think just ripping that band-aid off did push this timeline ahead by at least a year. And not a lot of teams do that. No one, when you look at especially even the Bruins this year, how this team bounced back over this recent stretch, it's tough to wave the white flag where hockey, it's so tough to kind of just gauge, like, being stuck in one path as far as what a franchise needs to do. It's tough to admit defeat and move guys off the roster that have been there forever, but you're seeing the rewards right now, and ideally the rewards get even higher if these young guys hit and more guys you got at the deadline continue to thrive here in Boston.
Yeah, I think Sweeney's going to put his Brad Stevens cap on, where he was like, "I get that these guys have been here forever, but I'm trading them, and I don't really care." And as we've done 1,000 times, props to him for that. That was again like a huge thing. Mike Professional says, "I think you got to deal one of the four first rounders you have. Top 6 doesn't seem to come available through free agency." I agree. You're not going to get one of those top 6 forward in free agency, most likely. You can take your chances drafting them. And that's it. I think the tried and true way is building your team through the draft. I do think, though, like if the perfect guy became available via trade, the Bruins have the pieces to go get that guy. Like I think that's one of the big things is that being good this year and saying, oh, you have more than you thought in Zadorov and Middlestat and Zaka, you say, all right, you know what? Let's kind of push some chips to the middle of the table and let's go get that guy, whether it's a Rasmus Anderson or a Rasmus Anderson like forward impact wise, that you go and get. And you say, we're further along than we thought. I agree, but I do want them to make their first round picks, especially their firsts. Like you need that influx of high end young talent coming down the way. Like that, I still am not sold on. So that's the tougher part for me to kind of wrap my head around. But again, the fact that we're even talking about this now means things are
I'll
going pretty
take it.
good.
Yep.
I'll take it. No problem there. Connor, what can the people look forward to from you over at the Globe and Boston.com?
Yeah, you can read my stuff over at theglobeandboston.com. We've covered every step of the way this Bruins season. We got recaps, features, columns, breakdowns, all that good stuff. So please subscribe over on those two sites. And if you want to follow me on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it these days, you can at Conor Ryan _93.
Go do all that. I want to answer this question real quick before we go. Sean asks, do they deal a guy like Lysell if a trade becomes available? They don't seem to be interested in playing him anytime soon. What are you dealing him for? Like, what are you like?
I think it would have to be
getting
like
anything.
part of a like package deal, right?
Yeah.
Like, maybe
Taking
if
a
it's
flyer on him.
if you're getting like a good player back, right? Like Anderson or Kyrou. I'm just trying to think of some guys, right? It's probably like, first and you add in some sweeteners there. And I think that a team, if he's part of that package, you take the flyer on and see if you can unlock more out of him. But I don't think you're getting a third round pick for him, or I don't think like it's a 1-for-1 where you're
No.
getting anything for the player. So
Throwing him in there is an extra thing if a team feels that there's something there. As Aiden says, for Marty Natchez. There you go.
yeah,
Go get Marty
that's
Natchez. Lysell for Natchez.
RIP to those narratives, right?
Yeah. Oh, they
We're
were
on to
fun
Jordan.
while they
We're
lasted.
on to Kempe and Kyrou now. So
That's right. That's right. Well, all right. That's live Bruins Beat. Much appreciated to everyone who logged in and listened and watched and interacted with us. We love doing these. We'll do more of them. That's Conor Ryan. I'm Evan Marinofsky. Your Bruins Beat listeners. Have a great rest of your week.